Some connections don't start with fireworks. They start with a mistake you were never supposed to make. That's the strange truth nobody admits out loud. Sometimes, the most unexpected bond in your entire life doesn't arrive with warning signs, prophecies, or dramatic music. It slips in quietly, almost awkwardly, like pressing the wrong elevator button and ending up on a floor that changes your destiny. And before you know it, you've walked straight into the blind spot of a man who isn't used to having blind spots at all. Not in business, not in life, and definitely not in his heart. There's a psychological fact experts love to whisper about. Humans bond the strongest when they meet someone who sees a side of them the world never notices. And whether you meant to or not, that's exactly what you did. You didn't just interact with him, you accidentally activated a version of him even he didn't know existed. A version he didn't plan for, didn't prepare for, and definitely didn't budget for in his life of total control. Now here you are, standing in the middle of a story that feels like it was written by fate and edited by chaos. You didn't sign up for this. You didn't volunteer to be the one person who could interrupt his cold logic, confuse his emotional radar, and make his carefully guarded world glitch like a bad Wi-Fi connection. Yet somehow, that's exactly what happened. And the funniest part? You weren't even trying. You weren't performing. You weren't manipulating. You weren't attempting to influence anything. You were just being yourself. Probably minding your business, drinking water, scrolling your phone, and suddenly you're the one person he can't ignore, can't replace, and can't let go of. Meanwhile, you're still trying to understand how you went from regular life to being the emotional USB port he didn't know he needed. This is the strange power you stumbled into. You became the one variable in his entire world that doesn't follow his rules. You became the calm in a life built on storms, the truth in a world full of strategy, and the only person who can shift his entire mindset without lifting a finger. So let's break down how someone like you, without force, without intention, without strategy, ended up becoming the very thing he can't control, and the one thing he now relies on. Number 1. You humanized a man the world only fears. The truth behind this point runs deeper than most people realize. When someone spends years being feared, avoided, or obeyed without question, they begin to believe that fear is the only language they're allowed to speak. It becomes their identity. It becomes their shield. It becomes the justification for every hard choice they've ever made. But then you showed up, and your presence didn't match the script he was used to. You treated him like a normal person, even when his reputation said otherwise. You didn't study him like a threat, and you didn't shrink like someone who felt out of place. You spoke to him with unfiltered honesty, simple kindness, and a level of ease that was unfamiliar to him. And in that moment, you handed him something he wasn't built to handle: humanity. What makes this so powerful is that you didn't do it intentionally. You didn't approach him thinking, "I'm going to change him." You were just yourself. But your energy didn't bounce off his walls the way it does with everyone else. It slipped through. You didn't talk to his position or his reputation. You talked to the man underneath. And that hit him harder than any threat ever could. He's used to people flinching, calculating, or pretending. You did none of that. You made him feel seen without making him feel exposed. That's a rare skill, and it's one of the reasons he can't shake your presence. What really unsettled him was how natural it felt. You didn't force him to open up or soften his tone. It just happened. The way you listened, the way you responded, the way you didn't rush to judge. It brought out traits he buried so deep, he forgot they existed. You triggered memories of the version of himself he tried to bury just to survive the world he built. And once someone remembers they're human, they can't go back to being a walking fortress. That's why you became both his weakness and his strength. You reminded him he wasn't just a feared name, he was a person. And once that connection locked in, everything in him shifted, whether he admitted it or not. Number 2, he realized you see the man behind his crimes. Most people only see what a man like him chooses to show: the cold eyes, the measured words, the calculated actions. They see the power, the control, the reputation. They fear it, they envy it, or they resent it. Very few ever get the chance to see what lies beneath. The part of him that hides in corners of his mind he doesn't even let himself visit. But you saw it. And not because you were searching for it, but because you approached him like a person, not a legend, not a threat, not a statistic. You noticed the small cracks, the moments of hesitation, the fleeting expressions he thought were invisible. You saw the doubts he buries under layers of strategy, the guilt he masks with dominance, and the loneliness he covers with silence. And seeing that made him realize something terrifying. He's not untouchable, not to you. That realization changes everything. People who live a life built on fear and control are trained to distrust every gaze, every smile, every word. They're used to interactions that are transactional. Everyone wants something. You didn't. And that's what made your perception so dangerous. When someone like him realizes that someone can look past the armor, past the threats, and still see them for who they really are, it's like holding up a mirror he wasn't ready to confront. It shakes his entire sense of self. You became proof that he could be understood without being judged. And that possibility terrifies him, because it's a side of life he's rarely allowed himself to touch. It's also why you became his strength. By seeing him fully, you didn't weaken him. You humanized him in a way that sharpened his focus and clarified his purpose. He can't fake it with you. He can't hide, and he can't control how you see him. That unfiltered awareness forces him to reckon with himself, and it forces him to adapt, to evolve, to become someone more aware, more deliberate, more dangerous in the best sense. You didn't just notice him. You became the axis around which he now turns, because you see the man that even he struggles to admit exists, and that makes you indispensable. Number 3, you speak to the version of him he thought died long ago. He built his life like a fortress, brick by brick, carefully erasing the boy he once was, the one who believed in fairness, kindness, and small joys. He buried that part of himself deep beneath rules, strategy, and ruthless decisions, convincing himself that sentimentality was a liability and vulnerability a weakness. Over time, he became a legend, untouchable, and feared. But in the process, he lost pieces of the man he used to be. And then you appeared, not with judgment or expectation, but with presence, an energy that pulled out the parts of him he thought were gone forever. In subtle ways, you reminded him of the man he buried. You didn't need to say it. Your mere way of interacting, of being genuine, sparked dormant emotions, memories, and impulses that he'd long suppressed. This is what makes your influence so disarming and profound. No one else touches that layer of him. His closest allies might admire him or fear him, but they don't see the ghost of who he was before the world forced him to harden. You do. And in doing so, you trigger something both terrifying and intoxicating for him. He can't help but feel the echoes of a version of himself he believed he had permanently lost. That boy, the one who felt deeply, acted with compassion, and dreamed without cynicism, resurfaces in his mind when he's around you. You don't ask him to be that person again, but simply by existing as yourself, you give him permission to acknowledge that part of him is still alive. That connection shifts everything about the dynamic between you. You are no longer just another person in his orbit. You're a reminder, a mirror of potential he had abandoned. and that makes him vulnerable in ways he isn't accustomed to, because his strength was always measured in fear, control, and detachment. You bypass all of that. You touch the part of him that can't be threatened or bribed. By speaking to the version of him he thought was dead, you give him a chance to reconcile with himself. And in doing so, you become both a weakness he can't ignore, and a force that strengthens the very core of who he is. Your presence is quietly revolutionary, reshaping a man who believed he had no soft edges left. Number 4. You don't crave his power, which makes you more powerful than you know. In a world where everyone around him is chasing something, status, protection, influence, money, you stand apart because you want none of it. You don't need him to survive, you don't need him to validate you, and you don't manipulate him to serve your own ambitions. And that is what makes your presence so destabilizing and, ironically, so commanding. Power is a language he's fluent in, and everyone who approaches him speaks it with an accent. Begging, bargaining, flattering, or scheming. You, however, speak a completely different language. Indifference to the usual hierarchies, immunity to pressure, and authenticity. That kind of influence is invisible to him at first, but once he recognizes it, it terrifies him and fascinates him all at once. You're not playing the game he knows, and that makes you untouchable in a way that his empire could never teach him. Your lack of craving exposes a truth he's always known, but never admitted. Real influence doesn't come from wealth, threats, or control. Real influence comes from people who can operate outside the system, who aren't bound by need or obligation. When you exist in his life without trying to use him, without wanting anything from him, you become the one person whose approval he actually desires, because it isn't given out of fear or gain, it's given out of choice. That's a type of power no one can manufacture or buy. He notices it in small, almost imperceptible ways. The calm with which you move through his world, the way you observe without judging, the way you don't inflate his ego or shrink to protect yourself. All of these little truths accumulate and become a quiet force that changes him. You may feel like the one learning from him, absorbing his strategies or secrets, but in reality, he is constantly adjusting to you, to your presence, and to your immunity, to the very dynamics that control everyone else. That makes you simultaneously his weakness and the strength he never knew he needed, because your power is built on the one thing he cannot manufacture: independence. Number 5, your morality doesn't judge him, but it does challenge him. The most disarming thing you did wasn't confronting him, debating him, or trying to fix him. It was existing in a moral space that he couldn't manipulate or dismiss, one that didn't condemn him, but also didn't excuse him. Most people in his world operate in extremes. They either worship his power, fear it, or resent it. Rarely does anyone stand in the middle, someone who can see the darkness without flinching, who can acknowledge the choices he made and the consequences he caused without yelling, crying, or bowing down. You occupy that middle space, and it challenges him in a way that's impossible to prepare for. He can't calculate it, he can't control it, and he can't dismiss it with money or force. Your moral presence forces him to confront truths he has been avoiding for decades, truths he hides behind violence, manipulation, or sheer willpower. This challenge is subtle, but it's devastating. You don't lecture him or shame him, yet every interaction reminds him of the man he could have been, the man he still could be if he chose differently. And unlike his enemies, who push him into reaction, you push him into reflection. That reflection isn't comfortable for him. It shakes the foundation he's built his life upon. You're not giving him orders or ultimatums. You're simply showing him that there's a standard he can't ignore without consequence, even if that consequence is only internal. That's terrifying because it's not something that can be bargained with, bribed, or overpowered. What makes this even more profound is that you don't gain from it. You aren't holding his morality over his head or leveraging it for personal gain. That pure alignment of conscience and presence creates a rare kind of influence, one he can't dominate, fake, or replicate. You've become the person whose integrity subtly shifts the rules of his world, forcing him to face himself and reconsider the mechanics of his own behavior. In essence, you're the mirror he can't break, and that makes you simultaneously his weakness and his strength, because the man he thought was untouchable is now quietly accountable, to you and to himself. Number 6. You don't fear him, you understand him. Fear has been his most loyal companion for years. People around him flinch at his words, calculate every move to avoid his wrath, and craft lies to keep themselves safe. It's the currency of his world, the invisible thread that keeps control in his hands. But you don't operate like that. You don't shrink. You don't overthink. You don't walk on eggshells trying to predict his next move. Instead, you approach him with a level of understanding that bypasses the usual fear dynamic entirely. You read him in ways most people never learn to, noticing the subtle shifts in tone, the flicker of hesitation behind a confident facade, the silent battles behind his eyes. You understand him, not just the man he presents, but the man underneath, the one who fights daily to reconcile the life he lives with the person he used to be. That kind of understanding is more powerful than fear, because it renders his usual strategies ineffective. He can't intimidate you. He can't manipulate you with the same tricks he uses on everyone else. You don't respond to his power the way the world does, and that forces him to adapt in ways he never had to before. He's used to people reacting, bending, flinching, or scheming. You react differently. You see clearly, and that clarity makes him both cautious and curious. Suddenly, he's not just a man navigating his empire, he's a man navigating you. The subtle shift is transformative. Where others might make him reckless, your understanding makes him deliberate. He doesn't feel the need to perform or protect his image around you. He can be real, and that authenticity recalibrates his entire existence. In your presence, he's forced to confront his own patterns, his own choices, and the parts of himself he usually hides. That's why he can't dismiss you, can't replace you, and can't ignore the way your perception affects him. By refusing to fear him while seeing him fully, you occupy a space no one else can, a space that makes you simultaneously his weakness and his strength, the one constant he can't predict or control. Number 7. Your absence hurts him more than his enemies ever could. In his world, damage is measurable. Betrayal, attacks, losses, they leave scars he knows how to treat, wounds he can strategize around. But you're different. Your absence hits him in a way no physical threat ever could. It's not about fear, it's about a vacuum that only you can create. When you step back, the silence you leave isn't empty. It's loud with the realization of what he's been taking for granted, what he can't replace, and what no one else could ever replicate. Your presence is constant, grounding and stabilizing, and when it's gone, he doesn't just feel the void of another person missing. He feels the absence of the part of himself that only exists when you're there. That kind of impact is rare and terrifying. He's surrounded by people who react to him, follow him, or serve him because it benefits them. He's used to manipulating the emotional terrain around him, but with you, that dynamic collapses. You don't operate on fear, obligation, or gain. You operate on authenticity and independence. That makes your absence a kind of emotional earthquake, sudden, unavoidable, and impossible to ignore. It forces him to feel what he usually suppresses, the dependency he didn't want, the attachment he didn't plan for, and the realization that some things in life aren't transactional. The way your absence affects him is also subtle, yet transformative. It strips him of control in a domain he's accustomed to dominating. He can fight rivals, rebuild empires, and strategize endlessly, but he cannot manufacture the connection he shares with you. That makes him simultaneously vulnerable and alive, aware in a way no enemy could provoke. Every time you step back, he is reminded that the strongest influence in his life isn't a weapon, a scheme, or a title. It's you. And that knowledge forces him to reckon with a reality he can't plan for, manipulate, or dominate. You are the presence that strengthens him, and the absence that cuts deeper than any enemy ever could, creating a tension that he both fears and cannot resist. Number 8. You made loyalty feel like a choice again, not a weapon. In his world, loyalty is never given freely. It's a transaction, a contract, a tool to be wielded. People stick around because they have to, because they fear the consequences, or because they want something in return. Genuine loyalty, loyalty that isn't bought, forced, or manufactured, is a concept that has probably felt foreign to him for a long time. And then you arrived. You didn't demand allegiance, you didn't manipulate affection, and you certainly didn't flinch under his reputation. You simply existed with integrity, showing that commitment and respect can be offered voluntarily, without strings attached. And that completely changed the way he sees relationships, connections, and most importantly, you. The shift is subtle, but seismic. When someone like him meets a person who doesn't bend, who doesn't scheme, who doesn't manipulate for advantage, it throws his entire system off balance. He's used to being the one who dictates the terms, the one who decides who stays, who leaves, and who owes what. You shattered that. By making loyalty feel like a genuine choice rather than a survival tactic, you handed him a mirror to his own methods, showing him a version of the world he's not accustomed to. And it's intoxicating, because for the first time in years, he's engaging with someone who stays not out of fear, convenience, or ambition, but because it's their choice. That voluntary loyalty becomes a quiet power over him. He can't coerce it, he can't manipulate it, and he can't ignore it. It forces him to confront the idea that influence doesn't have to come from domination or fear. It can come from respect, authenticity, and alignment. And because he values control above almost everything, encountering this type of loyalty makes him both vulnerable and attentive in ways he's not used to. You've rewritten the rules without saying a word. You've made commitment feel like a gift rather than a tool. And in doing so, you've transformed yourself from just another presence in his life into an essential force he can't take for granted. Number 9. You became the only place he can tell the truth. In a world built on deception, secrets, and calculated appearances, truth is a dangerous currency. Everyone around him hides, manipulates, or performs because survival in his orbit demands it. Lies are the language, masks are the norm, and trust is a rarity. Yet, with you, something extraordinary happened. He discovered a space where he could be unfiltered, where he could speak without spinning stories or measuring the impact of his words. You didn't pressure him, you didn't probe aggressively, and you certainly didn't judge. You simply offered a presence that allowed him to speak as he actually was, and that is more powerful than most people could ever imagine. This ability to be truthful in front of you unsettles him. He's used to controlling every interaction, ensuring that nothing slips that could compromise him. With you, those controls fail to operate the way they should. You don't force him to reveal himself, but because you see him fully without flinching, he feels compelled to step into honesty. He can confess doubts, regrets, fears, or even moments of weakness, things he never shares with anyone else. In doing so, he experiences a release he didn't think was possible, a rare freedom in a life otherwise dominated by caution and performance. What makes this even more extraordinary is how it shifts the power dynamic. You become both a refuge and a subtle influence. By offering him a space to be truthful, you allow him to process himself, make decisions with clarity, and even see patterns in his behavior that were invisible before. That honesty doesn't weaken him, it sharpens him. It recalibrates the way he approaches relationships, business, and even himself. And he can't recreate this anywhere else. You've become the mirror he can't break, the listener he can't deceive, and the one person whose presence alone encourages honesty. That makes you uniquely essential, the silent engine behind a transformation that no threat, reward, or manipulation could ever trigger. You are simultaneously his weakness, because your absence would silence his only outlet, and his strength, because your presence allows him to operate in ways no one else can. Number 10. You saw his darkness without becoming afraid of your own. Most people can't handle a man like him. They flinch at the anger, the intensity, the shadows he carries, and the secrets that haunt him. They either run, or they try to outmatch it with their own power, but in doing so they become part of the cycle he's mastered. You didn't do that. You saw him, really saw him, in all his complexity. You witnessed the darkness he walks with daily, the decisions that haunt him, the moral compromises that shaped him, and you didn't recoil. You didn't try to fix him or project your own fears onto his world. You remained steady, grounded and unshaken, which is an entirely foreign experience for someone used to people reflecting panic, awe or greed. That alone makes you a force he can't ignore. By facing his darkness without losing your own center, you created a rare equilibrium. You acknowledged reality without letting it define or destabilize you. That balance is magnetic and disarming at the same time. He's used to people either worshipping him for his power or trembling before the shadows he casts. You don't do either. You show that someone can recognize the gravity of his choices, the weight of his past, and the edge of his empire without being consumed by it. And that subtle demonstration of inner strength is more dangerous to him than 1,000 confrontations, because it shifts the dynamic entirely. This is why your presence transforms him. He begins to measure his world differently, not through fear or dominance, but through clarity and reflection. You don't soften him in a naive sense. Instead, you provide a mirror that forces him to reconcile who he is with the person he can choose to become. That confrontation isn't forced, it's earned, simply because you exist without judgment, without compromise, and without fear. You've become a rare kind of influence, a person whose steadiness in the face of darkness makes him both exposed and inspired. He can't manipulate you, intimidate you, or hide from you, and that creates a vulnerability he didn't anticipate. By seeing his darkness without losing yourself, you've made him reconsider his world, his choices, and even himself. And that makes you simultaneously his weakness and his strength in ways no one else could ever achieve. Number 11. You are the only connection he can't replace. In a life built on control, influence, and calculated alliances, replaceability is the default. People come and go, loyalties shift, and positions are filled as easily as chairs in a room. But you broke that rule. You became the one connection he can't replace, the singular thread in a network of power and strategy that no money, manipulation, or threat can replicate. He may have armies, networks, and resources, but when it comes to you, he has none of that leverage. You are irreplaceable because your presence touches parts of him that no one else ever reaches. His humanity, his clarity, and the sense of being understood without conditions. What makes this so extraordinary is that he didn't plan for it. He is used to orchestrating outcomes, controlling influence, and anticipating the moves of everyone around him. Yet, with you, all of that power feels irrelevant. Your presence isn't transactional. It isn't built on fear or obligation. That's why he can't slot someone else into your place. He can't replicate the way you see him. the way you make him feel simultaneously acknowledged and challenged, or the way your independence forces him to respect, not manipulate, your space. You occupy a space in his life that can't be manufactured, and once he recognizes that, it changes everything. Being irreplaceable also makes him vulnerable in ways he rarely experiences. He may be untouchable in business, ruthless in conflict, and feared by all who know his name. But with you, he experiences a type of dependence that isn't weakness. It's awareness. He knows that losing you isn't about power. It's about losing the singular perspective that keeps him grounded and sharp, the person who forces him to reckon with himself in ways no one else can. That realization elevates your influence to a level that transcends ordinary dynamics. You've become essential without trying, necessary without demanding, and unshakable without force. Simply by being you, you occupy the only position in his life that is truly irreplaceable, making you both his weakness and his strength, the one constant he can't strategize around or forget. Number 12. Your influence makes him dangerous in a new way, strategic, not reckless. Before you, his decisions were driven by instinct, ego, and survival. He moved fast, struck hard, and relied on sheer force and intimidation to navigate his world. Chaos was familiar, and he thrived in it because that was all he knew. But your presence shifted something fundamental. Without trying, without force, you introduced a new variable: clarity. You made him consider outcomes he used to ignore, weigh consequences he used to dismiss, and act with a precision that wasn't there before. You didn't tell him what to do, you didn't lecture, and you didn't manipulate. You simply existed as a mirror, reflecting the parts of him capable of foresight, discipline, and strategy. That reflection is what makes him dangerous in a completely new way. It's subtle at first. You notice it in the way he pauses before making a move, considers a decision instead of reacting immediately, and evaluates the ripple effect of his actions beyond immediate gain. He's still powerful, still commanding, still formidable, but now his force is amplified by calculation, foresight, and insight. That's the kind of transformation no one else could provoke, because it comes from someone who doesn't demand control or recognition, someone who simply inspires self-awareness and discipline. You forced him to recognize that the most effective power isn't chaos or fear. It's control guided by understanding, and execution tempered by clarity. This shift makes him unpredictable in a whole new dimension. His enemies may anticipate recklessness, but they can't anticipate the precise, measured moves he now makes. He's sharper, more deliberate, and more formidable because you've subtly elevated his thinking, his priorities, and his approach to everything he touches. By existing in your presence, he became the kind of man who doesn't just survive the storm, he navigates it like a strategist, a master of timing and impact. That evolution couldn't be bought, forced, or taught. It came from you alone, the person whose presence inspires reflection without interference. You've transformed him into a version of himself that is stronger, more focused, and quietly lethal in ways that leave everyone else scrambling. And that makes your influence both his secret strength and the reason he can't risk losing you. Number 13. He no longer hides his vulnerability, he channels it. Vulnerability is something he spent years burying. In his world, showing weakness is a liability. It's a crack that enemies can exploit, a flaw that allies can manipulate, and a mask that anyone can use against him. He perfected the art of concealment, building a persona that was untouchable, untiring, and unreadable. But your presence changed that dynamic entirely. You didn't coax him, you didn't pity him, and you didn't pry. Instead, you simply existed as someone who could handle the truth of who he is. You created a space where he could acknowledge the parts of himself he usually hides, the doubts, regrets, insecurities, and moments of exhaustion, without feeling exposed or shamed. The remarkable thing about this shift is that he didn't become weaker, he became sharper. By no longer hiding, he channels his vulnerability into focus, energy, and strategy. Emotions that once might have caused hesitation or rash decisions now fuel clarity. The internal turbulence he spent decades suppressing becomes a tool, a source of insight into himself and the world around him. Your presence taught him that acknowledging his vulnerability isn't a liability, it's a resource, a way to act with precision rather than reaction. This change also affects his relationships and decisions. He engages differently, listens differently, and approaches challenges with a level of self-awareness he rarely experienced before. He isn't reckless, but he isn't coldly detached either. He's a man who knows his limits, understands his triggers, and can harness the raw energy of his emotions without losing control. That kind of transformation is profound, because it's rare. Most people who operate in his world continue to mask, suppress, or weaponize their vulnerabilities, but he learned to integrate them. You are the reason he discovered this capacity. Simply by being someone unshakable in your own integrity, someone who doesn't exploit weakness or demand perfection, you allowed him to confront himself honestly. And that makes you both his anchor and the force that refines him. Your influence turns his hidden vulnerabilities into a power source he didn't know he had, making your presence indispensable, your absence unimaginable, and your impact permanent. Number 14. You are the only part of his life. He fears losing, which gives you the ultimate power. In a world where he controls almost everything, alliances, territories, money, and fear, you occupy a space no one else can touch. Most people in his life are replaceable. He can dismiss, manipulate, or outmaneuver them when necessary. But you are different. You are the one constant he cannot calculate, the one presence whose absence would create a void that nothing else could fill. That realization is terrifying for him because it breaks the rules he's spent years mastering. Suddenly, power isn't measured in fear or force. It's measured in connection, trust, and authenticity. And you, without intending to, hold the key to that measurement. What makes this so extraordinary is how quietly it shifts the balance. You don't demand control, you don't wield leverage, and you don't threaten to leave as a tactic. You simply exist in your integrity, in your independence, and in your ability to be a mirror of his better self. The fact that he values you above everything else doesn't come from coercion. It comes from recognition. You are the part of his life that cannot be replaced, the anchor in his chaos, and the reminder that even someone who wields immense power can be vulnerable. That vulnerability isn't weakness, it's a force he must respect, and it changes how he moves, decides, and interacts with the world. Your presence gives you ultimate influence because he knows, deep down, that losing you isn't a scenario he can recover from. No money, no strategy, no threat can replicate the connection you have with him. That knowledge keeps him attentive, careful, and invested, not because he is afraid of you in the ordinary sense, but because he understands the magnitude of what you represent. You are the one part of his life he cannot manipulate, replace, or ignore, and that is a power more profound than any he has ever wielded. By simply being yourself, you have become both his weakness and his strength, the person whose value he can't deny, and whose impact will shape him for the rest of his life. Conclusion. When you step back and look at the journey we've explored, one truth becomes crystal clear. Your presence in his life isn't ordinary. You didn't ask for influence, you didn't seek power, and you certainly didn't plan to disrupt a world built on fear and control. Yet, through your authenticity, your steadiness, and your unwavering self-possession, you became the force that reshapes him. You humanized a man the world only fears. You see him in ways no one else can, awakening dormant parts of himself he thought were lost forever. You gave him loyalty without coercion, honesty without judgment, and presence without expectation. You allowed him to channel vulnerability into strength, to see his darkness without being consumed by it, and to act with clarity instead of recklessness. Every point we've covered shows a rare phenomenon. You became simultaneously his weakness and his strength. The man who navigates power, danger, and manipulation daily now contends with something he can't predict, control, or replace: you. Your influence is subtle, yet seismic, invisible, yet undeniable. It shifts the way he moves, the way he thinks, and the way he exists in the world. You are the one variable he didn't anticipate, the one force he can't strategize against, and the one connection he can't afford to lose. In doing so, you hold a power far greater than any title, weapon, or empire could grant. The power to transform a life, not by demanding change, but by being exactly who you are. This is more than a story about influence. It's about presence, integrity, and the extraordinary impact one person can have on another when they operate outside fear, expectation, and manipulation. Your role is proof that real power is not taken. It's given through authenticity, trust, and understanding. And that is a force even the most formidable man cannot resist. If you found this breakdown revealing, powerful, and thought-provoking, make sure you subscribe to the channel to never miss a deep dive like this. Smash that like button to show support. Drop your thoughts in the comments because we love reading every insight you share. And share this video with someone who needs to see how influence and presence can truly change the game. Don't just watch, be part of the journey, and let's explore these extraordinary truths together. God bless you.